London is clearing up after another day of violent student protests after lawmakers approved a hike in university tuition fees. Rioters targeted government buildings. There was even an attack on Prince Charles's car. RT's Laura Emmett has the story.
We're seeing broken glass, a lot of people being drafted in for this clean-up operation. A lot of the violence was centred around the Green Open area, which is just opposite the Houses of Parliament. There, protesters tore down fences, which are now being having to be put back up again. There's a telephone box by the Treasury in which all the windows, all the little panes of glass had been meticulously smashed by one particularly determined person. Yesterday was a violent day. It's now being called the worst unrest that we've seen in London in a decade. I saw missiles, bottles and flares and firecrackers being aimed directly at police, and there was a point in the evening, in fact, whenever you saw a police motorcycle or a police car, it was being aggressively attacked by protesters. And also at one point, the Prince of Wales, Charles, and his wife Camilla's car was attacked by protesters. They were on their way to the theatre without what's now being described as significant enough police protection, and protesters attacked their car, smashed one of the windows and threw paint on their car. There's an investigation into how that could have been allowed to happen, but the royal couple is unharmed. Protesters were setting bollards on fire. They smashed windows at the Treasury and at the Supreme Court. And interestingly, to distinguish it from previous protests, it was increasingly difficult yesterday to find students who condemned the violence. More and more, they're seeing it more as a means to an end rather than something to be condemned and something that's hijacking their message. All of the people that we spoke to yesterday said that they will be carrying on protesting. It's important to note that this fees rise that has been agreed will treble the amount that it costs students to go to university, or some students at any rate. It's going to go up from just under $5,000 to around $14,000. We're also seeing a lot of anger against the Liberal Democrats, who are one half of the coalition that's governing the UK at the moment. The Liberal Democrats campaigned on a platform of abolishing student fees altogether, but now a lot of their ministers have voted in favour of increasing student fees. We spoke to Chris Knight yesterday, who's a professor of anthropology and also a seasoned demonstrator. Hardly a demonstration takes place in London without him being there, and he said that he's determined to fight on. Let's hear what he said.
For me, this is the spirit of '68 come again. In 1968, we saw in Paris and in Prague, of course, young people leading the struggle for freedom. And first the students moved, and then the workers. This is exactly what's happening here, except I think it will be on a much bigger scale right across Europe. And of course, as Chris Knight says, this is not an isolated incident. This is part of a Europe-wide movement. We saw protests and demonstrations on continental Europe over the summer, then spreading towards the UK in the autumn, winter. There have been several protests of this kind, although this was the biggest that we've seen in London so far. And earlier this week, we also saw a protest in Dublin against an austerity budget that was introduced, the toughest budget in Ireland's history. So we are seeing this violence both spreading and worsening and continuing. And certainly, as I say, the protesters that I spoke to yesterday are determined and prepared to come out onto the streets again in what some are already calling a winter of discontent.
You have millions of college grads that haven't entered the workforce yet, that haven't been able to get jobs out of college, and they have degrees in worthlessness. And they're $25,000 on average in debt. So a college education, what kind of job does that even buy you? What do? You have first choice at getting, being a shelf stocker at Walmart's at 3 in the morning. You're going to see a bust happen in the United States and cities that's going to rival what's going on in Ireland, what's going to happen in Portugal, what's happened in Greece. It's going worldwide. The American empire is unfolding and collapsing in front of everyone's eyes. The politicians are in the pocket of the military-industrial complex and Wall Street. Wall Street has hijacked Washington. Only a child can't see the proof, or the ignorant, or the people that are getting paid off. All you have to do is look at the facts and add up the numbers.